Delighted to welcome Ahmet Davutoğlu, former Prime Minister of Turkey. Welcome, sir. Lovely to have you back with us again.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thanks for inviting me for this very, very important and timely meeting to Dan, Dimitri, and all of our friends here. When we talk about the security, in fact, we are talking on an architecture. Like a building, a beautiful building, the security, which is really providing security for humanity, needs certain basic values, norms, and very functioning institutions. Unfortunately now, we are not living in a vacuum. We are living in a global framework, global environment. Today, the humanity lost the basic values of this architecture, of international order. I wrote a book published by Cambridge University Press in 2020, and I called this as a systemic earthquake. At that time, it was just the beginning of the systemic earthquake. Now we are in the middle of this systemic earthquake. All the basic norms of international structure has been violated. Territorial integrity as the basis of national sovereignty has been violated by Russia when invading Ukraine. The basic humanitarian law has been violated by Israel in genocide in Gaza. And the basic concept of sovereignty has been violated, again, in the case of Greenland and Denmark's sovereignty. It is now very easy to talk on anything you want if you have power. And both the United States and Russia, they are trying to create a new Cold War bipolarity. They define what should be and what is expected to be done. But what about the other actors? They don't care. Second, the institutions. I know Secretary General of United Nations, Guterres, very well. He is my very close friend. He did everything possible for the functionality of United Nations. But today, nobody expects anything from United Nations because UN Security Council has been meaningless after all these unilateral actions. For example, United States started the war in Iraq in 1991 after getting UN Security Council resolution. Father Bush needed a UN Security Council resolution. Son Bush went to UN Security Council, but when he didn't get this resolution, he formed a coalition of willings. But now Trump doesn't need anything. He decides which country's leader should be captured, should be killed, or which could be happening. So international security structure we cannot expect anything from that. The second guarantee for security is regional arrangements, which is very important. Now I will draw, now Southeast Europe or Balkans is not an isolated region. There is no more any isolated region on earth. We are all interconnected. We are all interconnected. Just imagine now, Black Sea zone, there is a crisis. Southeastern Mediterranean, Eastern Mediterranean, Turkey and Greece basically, and then Red Sea, Bab el-Mandeb, then Hormuz Strait, and Gulf and Caspian Basin. Please think about this map. Just like a circle around us. Whatever happens anywhere in this will affect the other side, especially in the case of security, energy security. Now, there is a crisis in the Gulf. The traditional sea routes, commercial water crossings, and energy corridors are intersected. A crisis anywhere. For example, now we are talking on Hormuz. Hormuz Strait is not just a strait between United Arab Emirates or Gulf and Iran. Now, India, ignoring India, China, you cannot do anything. You cannot make any plan there. And this war, Israel, United States, and Iran is becoming a global war because of these interconnections. Assume that in a few days, because of these reactions, Bab el-Mandeb, Yemen, by Houthis is being closed. The Suez up to Bab el-Mandeb will be closed, and European trade will be affected because going through Africa, which means 18 days that will create a new logistical issue. And coming to our region, Southeast Europe, Balkans, and Eastern Mediterranean is a transit in this circle. If we act wisely, we can at least minimize the risk of our region. There we need to cooperate together. Turkish-Greek relation and both sides of Cyprus is, if we are able to solve this issue, there will be natural resources there. And looking to the general energy dependency in Balkans, the most luckiest country is Romania. All the rest are very much dependent, sometimes 60%, sometimes 70%, outside resources. And after this Gulf crisis, LNG to Greece and Italy will be also affected. And the only way, let me say just one short sentence, yes, regarding Turkey. What is the significance of Turkey? Turkey is just at the center of all these surrounding regions and all the energy resources. Assume that TAP from Azerbaijan to our region is through Turkey. Anything from Iraq as the natural resource to the region will be coming through Turkey. And Turk Stream, although it is dependent on Russia as well, also through Turkey. So Turkish-EU relation is becoming much more significant, much more strategic at this moment. I hope EU leaders will understand the significance of Turkey, and there should be a new understanding of Turkey together with EU to restore the stability around us and also Black Sea economic cooperation to vitalize this. There are many challenges where our time is limited, but there is a big systemic earthquake. We have to understand that the aftershocks of the earthquake will affect all the humanity. Thank you.
Thank you. Very clear points made there, so thank you very much for that. Obviously, within this region, there is also not just cooperation, but there's also competition too, and in the energy sector, and everybody, to one degree or another, is pursuing their own interests. And in the context of what's now happening in the Middle East, fallout from the war, could we see a situation in which this could derail some of the very positive, momentum that we've seen in recent years, rapprochement between Greece and Turkey, very positive things happening there, other examples? Or do you actually see this conflict bringing the region together? So and how? This is the point. This is my question. I really am putting it again to all of you, just on this cooperation point. So concretely, how do you think we need to proceed?
To be more practical, I want to say 4 levels of cooperation. One is private sector and individual nation states. Yesterday when I met with our ambassador, Özgür Bey here, my first question was how Turkish investments are going in Romania, because Romania in our strategic planning early 2000 was one of the main pillar state to develop economic relations. I was very impressed that we have, I think, around 13 billion US dollars investment here as Turkey, and I was very impressed when I saw in energy sector, solar energy, the biggest investor is a Turkish company. So this bilateral relation, these private sector and individual countries. Second level is bilateral relations between countries. Dimitri, he mentioned our good relations. Why did we have? Because in 2013, when I was Minister of Foreign Affairs and Prime Minister, we had joint cabinet meetings between Turkey and Greece. And we signed in one day 25 agreements. In all 100 years, Turkish-Greek total agreement was 35. In one day, we signed 25.
And we were the architects of that.
Yeah, that is mutual trust. You can see, when you look to this glass, you can see empty side or full side. We have to look from the positive perspective. Third, regional level. Unfortunately, in our region, in Balkans or Southeast Europe, we have to make a psychological revolution, a mindset revolution. Still, we are thinking very minor way, micro-nationalism, and we do not assess the strategic significance of our region. We all think that Balkan is a fragmented region, margin of Europe, and not so significant. We are always looking to Brussels. Brussels is a very important capital, but Athens was much more ancient. Yesterday we saw in the dome of the hall, and Istanbul and many other cities. What I am saying is, for example, now I am not in the office, but I want to ask to all the leaders of the Balkan region, did they have any regional meeting between foreign ministers, or if they are very busy, between energy ministers, to make some strategic assessment and consequences of the crisis in the Gulf, how it may affect Balkan region? You do not think that Gulf is far away, no. For example, TAP is the biggest resource, nature resource, one of the biggest, non-Russian dependent, the only, Azerbaijan, Turkey, Greece, Albania, Italy. And now you think that Gulf is far away, but Iran is a Caspian Sea country. Fortunately, with the wise attitude of Azerbaijan and Turkey, they are not part of any war. But one day, if this war spreads to Iranian Caspian coast, if it affects this, that will be affecting our region. So why I am giving this? There should be some regional mechanisms among ministers. For example, trade. I was very happy when I heard from Mr. Secretary General about I asked him how the meeting is continuing, since Ukraine and Russia is in all these meetings of Black Sea Economic Cooperation. He has a great job. I don't know how he managed in the meetings, but that Black Sea Economic Cooperation is important. The most strategic step Turkey has taken, and I admire our government in that sense, is that grain corridor. During the Ukrainian crisis, grain corridor. You should not forget that the straits, which is water crossings like Bosporus, Dardanelles, Suez, Bab el-Mandeb, Hormuz, and also if it spreads to China, Malacca Strait and Indonesian Straits will be the biggest, the most strategic corridor. So the geopolitical earthquake happened in 1990s was geopolitical. This one is geoeconomic. And without thinking global-wise, you cannot come to Europe. And coming to the last level, European level, I don't see a strategic leadership from the European side. If there is a strategic leadership, Europe has to have a new strategy regarding Turkey's participation. Not only, I am not looking from nation perspective. Today, Russia, United States, they think, as I said, like Cold War, but China is rising, India is coming, and in Hormuz Strait, India wants to play a role because 50% of resources are coming from there. Where will be Europe standing? And in Europe, where will be our region standing? Our individual countries might be important, but our individual countries' national interest will be meaningful only if that interest is consistent with the European, regional, European, global interest and cooperation. We need to have much more comprehensive strategic assessment, and we should not be looking just from the narrow, small hostilities or competitions between us, but we have to see Balkan region may rise again if we come together and if we can control the crisis and maximize the strategic interest of all these crises. Thank you.
A message